Hi, scholars. Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, May 5th. Today, we are continuing our work on adding and subtracting fractions. I'm going to start with some shout outs from yesterday's work. A lot of great scores to celebrate. So these following scholars were in the 100% club. Some scholars actually got 110% because they got the bonus correct. Some scholars used the bonus to get them to 100%. I was very impressed with our work on the bonus. So huge shout outs in UNC to Annalie, Anaya, Emmanuel, and Anthony. Shout outs in SCU, long list. SCU, Alejandro, Danya, Amelia, Joel, and Naira, Corday, Jakaira, Mael, Aiden, Philip, and Nevea. A lot of those SCU scholars we saw at office hours yesterday. They came, said, hey, I have a question. Just want to make sure this is correct. And that's how they ended up with 100%. Huge shout out to SCU. And in Duke, Larry, Edwin, Madeline, Tatiana, and Camila. Was excited to see some of those scholars in office hours as well. All right, so quite the list of 100% just from yesterday, our first day of adding and subtracting fractions. So excited to see this list get even bigger. I do want to do a quick check-in on your Vista Virtual points. Yesterday, we had a very exciting prize announcement. So some of you have earned homework passes, movie parties, lunch bunch, all those fun things coming this week. Sadly, a fifth grader did not earn the pizza last week, but excited to see who wins it next week. Currently, after just one day, we have Emmanuel in the lead, Naira, Kamaya, Philip, Howell, all in that top 5, looking great. A lot of points for it only being Tuesday morning. Ooh, Dillery and close. Dillery Nevea really up there for that top 5. Look for your name. See if you are in the top 10, if you are in the top 20. Looking good. If you do not have very many points so far, make sure you are getting your assignments completed. You get extra points for getting 90s, even more extra points for getting 100s. You get points for coming to office hours. You get points for coming to reteach. You get points for going to social lunch, field trip Tuesdays, all those fun things. So excited to see us continuing to earn those points. Let's take a quick look over at Maryvale. Edwin in a strong lead. Edwin, I heard you were the one Maryvale scholar who won the homework pass for today. So congratulations. Maryvale scholars, it seems like you don't have quite as many points, so make sure you are also coming to office hours, getting those assignments turned in, coming to reteach, so you can start winning some of those prizes as well. All right, we're going to dive right into our math for today. We're going to kick it off with a little word problem. All right, you can read it from my screen right here as you follow along. As I tell you this story, do make sure you have your blank paper ready to go to help me solve this. So one thing I love to make is I love to make pizzas. I haven't been able to make pizzas in a while because there has been no flour at the store. But luckily over the weekend, I was able to find some flour. They finally had some in stock. So over the weekend, I made a lot of pizza dough, and then I was ready to make some pizza. So I started out with just 1 1/4 of a pizza. I decided my personal favorite topping is jalapenos. I love jalapenos on my pizza. But Watson was going to have some of my pizza, and he does not like jalapenos because he does not like spicy food. So I only put jalapenos on 3/8 of one of my pizzas. I put pepperoni on all the remaining pizza. And I want to figure out how much of my pizza has pepperoni on it. Go ahead and you're going to take 3 minutes to solve this problem on your own, and then we're going to check back in with several of the strategies that different scholars used. I would recommend you start by writing the equation that matches the story. You can also always ask yourself, did I put pepperoni on more or less than 1 1/4 pizzas? Remember, I started with just 1 1/4 pizzas, and I only put jalapenos on 3/8 of one of the pizzas, and the rest I put pepperoni on. And we're trying to figure out how much of my pizza has pepperoni. Go ahead and take 3 minutes on your scrap paper and start by writing the equation that matches the story and then solve it however you would like. Go ahead and get right to work. Take about 30 more seconds and we'll check in to see what we have. Make sure you have your number sentence that matches the story and you have your strategy. All right, let's check in with our number sentence that matches the story. I'm starting with 1 1/4 pizzas, and I'm putting jalapenos on 3/8 of one of the pizzas, and then I know the rest is going to be pepperoni. So if we were to ask ourselves, am I putting pepperoni on more or less than 1 1/4 pizzas? It's got to be less than 1 1/4 pizzas. So number sentence that would match our story would just be 1 1/4 minus 3/8 equals, and we could have just said P for pepperoni. So I have 1 1/4 pizzas, but 3/8 of it is taken up by pepperoni, and then the rest, by jalapenos, and then the rest will be pepperoni. All right, I want to share a couple different ways that I saw scholars solving this problem. One thing everybody recognized was, before I can actually figure out how much pepperoni there is, before I can do any subtraction, we need to find a common denominator, something I saw everybody doing. So just like we were practicing yesterday, we thought, well, what could be a common denominator between 4 and 8? Some scholars I saw in office hours yesterday, at reteach yesterday, had really great strategies, either where they were skip counting by one number. Some scholars were writing them out to try to find what multiple do 4ths and 8ths have in common. And I'm going to use, 4, 8. Well, 4 goes into 8, so I'm going to use 8ths. Now, I know that I don't need to do anything to my whole number, so I'm going to keep my 1 the same. And then I'm going to use 8ths as my denominator. Now I'm in luck with my 3/8 because I don't actually have to change anything at all because I'm keeping this as 8ths. My 3 is going to stay the same. So then my job is just to figure out, okay, how do I go from 4ths to 8ths? Well, I would multiply 4 times 2 to get me to 8. So if I do it to the denominator, I do it to my numerator. I multiply my numerator by the same thing, by 2, which gives me 2/8. All right, so once we found a common denominator, we're looking at 1 2/8 minus 3/8. Okay, a lot of us have already noticed I can't do just 2/8 minus 3/8. I can't just subtract the eighths and leave my whole number there, because if I only have 2/8, I can't take 3/8 away. So I can't have a whole pizza that's pepperoni, because that doesn't leave enough for my jalapenos. So one thing I saw some scholars doing is just drawing it out. You may already have, or I know you already have, a strategy on your paper. I want you to just record the rest of these strategies along with me, just so you can, at the end, you'll have in your notes all the different ways that scholars could solve this. So let's just draw it out. I'm going to draw my 1 and 2/8. Now, I'm just going to erase the rest of this because I only made 1 and 2/8 pizzas. That's how much pizza I had. So now if I want to look at the amount of pizza that was jalapeno, I need 3/8 that can be jalapeno. Well, here's 1/8 right here. I can label this as jalapeno. Here's 1/8 right here. I can label that one as jalapeno. But now I'm out of eighths over here. So I'm going to have to do something to my whole pizza. So I'm going to just split my whole pizza into eighths. And I need a total of 3/8 to be jalapenos. So by taking 1/8 from that whole, I now have 1, 2, 3. So I can just label this. This is my 3/8 jalapeno pizza. And I know the rest of it is just going to be pepperoni. So I can label the rest of my pizza as pepperoni. And then I know my question was asking, well, how much pepperoni or how much pizza has pepperoni on it? Let's just go ahead and count our eighths. We have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. So 1 and 2/8 minus 3/8 equals 7/8. That was one way I saw scholars solving it, by drawing a picture. Always a great strategy. Let's take a look at another strategy I saw. Go ahead and get this one in your paper as well. I have some friends out there who just love adding up. And so let's rewrite our equation with our common denominator, 1 and 2/8 minus 3/8. Some scholars said, you know what? I would actually just prefer to add up. So they started with 3/8 and thought about, okay, what can I add that will get me close to, 1 and 2/8, I could go for a friendly number. I could just get myself to 1. 3/8, I need 5 more eighths to get me to 1, because I know 8/8 is equal to 1. Now I can take 1 and add 2/8 to get me to 1 and 2/8. So here we started with 3/8. We added up until we got to 1 and 2/8 by looking for some friendly numbers. And then we can just take a look at how much did we add. I always like to circle what's in the middle. And 5/8 plus 2 more eighths gives me 7/8. So we're actually getting the exact same thing. 1 and 2/8 minus 3/8 is 7/8. I'm just going to call this strategy adding up. So that's a strategy that some of us like to do. I'm going to call this strategy draw a picture or a model. Another great strategy. All right, let's take a look at another strategy, because some of us are saying, I don't really want to waste my time adding up. I actually just like to subtract. Find some room on your paper where you can do the strategy along with this. Let's start with our same equation with our common denominator. So 1 and 2/8 minus 3/8. So as many of us recognize, well, I can't do 2/8 minus 3/8, but I can take 3/8 from my whole. So I'm going to do 1 minus 3/8. I know 1 is 8/8. So if I think how many more 8s do I need to get to a whole? Well, 3/8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8/8. So that's a total of 5 more 8s that I need. So 1 minus 3/8 is 5/8. But I have to remember, so I've only done 1 minus 3/8. I still need to account for this 2/8 because I didn't just make 1 pizza. I actually made 1 1/4 or 1 2/8 pizza. So I would now just need to add my 5/8 plus my 2/8. This is how much of my whole pizza was left to be pepperoni. And then this is how much of the extra 2/8 pizza. And once again, we get an answer of 7/8. So this strategy, I just call this taking from the whole. You could also call it borrowing. It's almost like I had to break apart my 1 whole pizza, borrow some of the 8s from this whole pizza to get to my final answer of 7/8. And then I want to show just one other strategy. I saw another subtraction strategy. Let's go ahead and rewrite our equation again with our common denominators, 1 2/8 minus 3/8. So some scholars are saying, well, I can't take 3/8 from 2/8, but I can kind of increment or take just a little bit at a time. I can do 1 2/8 minus 2/8, and that gives me 1. So of this 3/8, I've taken away 2/8. That means I still have 1/8 left. So now I would do 1 minus 1/8 to get me to, you guessed it, that answer of 7/8. So right here is my 3/8 that we subtracted. And we can just call this strategy incrementing. You're just taking a little bit at a time. So lots of different strategies we can use. Let's just label this one. When it comes to subtracting fractions, when we find ourselves in a situation where I can't just keep my whole number and subtract a fraction from another fraction. It's not that I don't have enough. I can absolutely subtract 3/8 from 1 2/8. I'm just going to have to break apart my whole number. And so we saw how we could draw it out with a picture. We could add up. We could take from the whole, or we could use the strategy of incrementing. This was your bonus question yesterday. Today, you're going to have some questions like this. No longer a bonus, but huge shout out to scholars who already got the bonus yesterday. You're in great shape. All right, now that we know how much pepperoni I can put on my pizza, it seems a little unfair now that I think about it, that I only get 3/8 of 1 pizza with jalapenos, and I'm sure Watson will eat the rest, the other 7/8 covered in pepperoni, but what are you gonna do? Let's go ahead and try a few more problems. All right, we're gonna do some practice with some addition, some subtraction, a little bit of multiple choice in there, and then a few word problems, and then you'll be on your own, ready to solve some on your own. Let's go ahead and set up our scrap paper. Go ahead and label it question number 1. We have 2 2/9 plus 1 2/3. So today we're going to see a little bit more, a few more mixed numbers. Let's go ahead and record it. This is exactly what you are doing along with me as you watch the video. It's also exactly what you would do when you get to your independent practice. Of course, you would have your scrap paper. You would record the problem exactly as it's written. We know the first thing we need to do is find our common denominator. Go ahead, you're doing this on your paper. You can check in to double check it matches mine, but you shouldn't need to follow me step by step. We know that we keep our whole number the same. And so we just need to look for a denominator that both 9 and 3 have in common. Go ahead and skip count, do whatever you need to do to find that denominator. All right, I used a common denominator of 9. That was the lowest one I could think of. That was also nice because I didn't have to do anything about 2 and 2/9. And then I knew how to find my numerator for 1 and 2/3. I multiplied my denominator by 3, so I had to do the same thing to my numerator. Now we're ready to add. Now here I have 2 whole numbers. I can add those together, and then I have 2 fractions. I can add those together as well. Go ahead and add on your own. All right, and I got to an answer of 3 and 8/9. Thumbs up if you also got 3 and 8/9. Nice work. As a quick reminder, if I were going to type this on a computer, I know this is the way I like to write it. This is how we're used to seeing fractions. If I had to type this on a computer, I would type it as the number 3. I would leave a space, and then I would do 8, and then my slash, and 9. I know it does not look exactly the way we picture fractions. That's just what we're going to do while we have to type these into a computer for right now. So that's how we would type in our answer. All right, question number 2. Go ahead and get it set up on your paper. You should be able to do this pretty much on your own. Go ahead and find that common denominator, knowing our whole numbers are going to stay the same. You can check in to see if your equation matches mine with the same denominator. And now let's check our subtraction. Well, I can start by subtracting my whole numbers. I can do 3 minus 2 because I see I can also do 6/16 minus 4/16. Because I have fewer 16ths here that I need to take away, it's okay for me to subtract my whole numbers. I know that I can take 4/16 from 6/16. I don't need to borrow anything from a whole. So I can do 3 minus 2. And then I can do 6/16 minus 4/16. To get to an answer of 1 and 2/16. This is how this would look if we were typing it. 1 space 2/16 for 1 and 2/16. All right, those are some warm-up problems. There are little mixed numbers in there. Let's take a look at question 3. We've got a multiple choice one. You will see some questions like this. Let's go ahead and set it up. I just want to start by solving. I have 1/2 plus 2/8. Go ahead and solve by finding your common denominator. See if you can go as fast as me. All right. When I solved this, I used just a common denominator of 8, and so I got to an answer of 6/8. Does anyone else get to an answer of 6/8? Okay, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling confident. Let's go and find which letter that matches. 6/8. Okay, wait a second. None of my multiple choice options are 6/8. So it means I could have made a mistake. Let me just double check. 2/8, I kept the same. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 4, my numerator denominator is same. Okay, I double checked and I'm really confident that 4/8 plus 2/8 is in fact 6/8. So now I'm realizing that my answer is up here. It's just written as an equivalent fraction. So a fraction that equals the same amount, it just looks a little bit different. So now I can go through my choices and say, okay, which of these could be equal or equivalent to 6/8? If I need to draw it out, remind myself what 6/8 looks like. All right, so that's what 6/8 would look like. All right, well, I immediately know that B must be wrong because 6/8 and 3/8 cannot be the same. 3/8 would just be this top piece right here. So B cannot be correct. I can also immediately eliminate D because 6/8 and 5/8 cannot be the same. Numbers that have the same denominator can't have different numerators and be equivalent. So I know it can't be B or D. Now, if I look at A, 3/10, well, 3/10 is less than half, and 6/8 is more than half. So this is not showing me 3/8. Excuse me, it's not showing me 3/10. And so if I look at choice C, 3/4, well, first if I check my picture, 6/8, yeah, this would also be, if these were suddenly fourths, then this is showing 3/4. And that makes sense that 3/4 is equal to 6/8 because if I multiply or if I divide 8 by 2, that gives me 4. And if I divide 6 by 2, that gives me 3. I can do something to the numerator as long as I do it to the denominator. And so 3/4 is equivalent. So my correct answer would actually be C. So don't get tricked if you solve and then you double check and you still don't see your answer. It could just be written as an equivalent fraction. All right, let's take a look at a word problem. All right. Lucy put 10 gallons of gas in her car on Sunday. On Monday, she used 2 and 3/4 gallons of gas. On Tuesday, she used 1 and 1/2 gallons of gas. And on Wednesday, Lucy used 3 and 1/4 gallons of gas. How much of the original 10 gallons of gas is left in Lucy's car? Okay, a lot going on in this problem. I'm visualizing what's happening. I can picture her putting the 10 gallons of gas in her car. Then Monday she's driving, she's using up some of the gas. Tuesday she's driving, she's using up some of the gas. Wednesday she's driving, she's using up some of the gas. And then I'm actually trying to figure out how much gas is left in her car. So first I want to ask myself, is she going to have more or less than 10 gallons left in her car? Go ahead and show me in your hands. Will she have more or less than 10 gallons of gas left in her car? Yeah, she'll have less than 10 gallons left because she only put 10 gallons in and she's using up a little bit each day. So I think the first thing I want to do is just figure out how much gas did Lucy use on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So let's go ahead and figure out how much gas she used Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Go ahead and write your number sentence that matches how much gas she used Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So the number sentence that I have that shows the gas that she used, it's the 2 3/4 gallons she used Monday, plus the 1.5 gallons she used Tuesday, plus the 3 1/4 gallons she used on Wednesday. This will equal the amount of gas used. So we know how to figure this out. I'm looking, even though it's 3 add-ins, no big deal. I have fourths, I have halves, and I have fourths. So I'm already starting to think about a common denominator I could use between halves and fourths. I know I'm going to keep my whole numbers the same. Go ahead and add these up. If you want to check your denominator and see if you pick the same common denominator as me, yeah, I just picked fourths, which makes it really easy. You can check in and see if your equivalent equation matches mine once we found that common denominator. And then to add these, I'm just going to first add my whole numbers. And then add my fractions. Okay. Mathematically, 6 6/4 is correct. But when you go to a gas station, you wouldn't really say, oh, yeah, I need to pay for 6 6/4 gallons of gas. When we have these improper fractions, we want to reduce them or simplify them and just take out any whole numbers that we can. So I can subtract 4/4, which is the same as 1. So I have 6, and that's 1, and this leaves me with 2/4. All right, so Lucy used 7 2/4 gallons of gas. Great. You could also say 7.5 gallons of gas. But when I go back to my question, I'm remembering my question wasn't how much gas did Lucy use? My question was how much of that original 10 gallons of gas was left in Lucy's car? Okay, so now I'm thinking she started with 10 gallons. She used 7 2/4 gallons. I need to figure out that amount that is left. Well, I know what operation I need to do for an amount that is left. Let's go ahead and write our next equation. All right, so I'm just going to write it out as 10 minus the 7 2/4 gallons of gas that she used. This will give me the amount of gas that she has left. All right, now's your turn to shine. We talked about 4 different strategies for what to do if we need to subtract. I can't just do 10 minus 7 and leave my 2/4 on there because I'm going to have to take this 2/4 from a whole. So we talked about 4 different strategies. We could draw a picture. We could add up. We could subtract from the whole, or we could, actually, since we don't have a fraction here, we can't really increment right now. So 3 different things you could do. Go ahead and pick one that works for you and go ahead and finish up this problem. If you finish solving it one way, I challenge you to solve it in another way. All right, let's take a look at some strategies. So the first thing I did is I just tried drawing a picture. I drew out my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gallons of gas. That's how much she put in her car to begin with. I knew she'd used 7 2/4 of them, so I took away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I then had to split up this 1 gallon of gas into fourths, so I could take away 2/4. I then counted up what I had left. She had 1 gallon, 2 whole gallons, and 2/4 left. So Lucy was left with 2 2/4, which I could also say is 2.5 gallons of gas. Another thing I tried was adding up. So I started with my 2 2/4. I added 2/4 to get me to that next whole number. For me, that's going to be a friendly number in this situation because I just want to get to a whole number. Once I had 8, it was easy for me to add 2 more to get to 10. I took a look at what was in the middle here, what I'd added, and I had to add 2 2/4. So the difference between starting at 7 2/4 and trying to get to 10, that amount that I had to add was 2 2/4. And then one final way I tried it was just by subtracting. So I did 10 minus 7, and that gave me 3. But then I had to take that 3 and I had to subtract another 2/4. So here is my 7 2/4. And once I took 2/4 from 3, that left me with 2 2/4. Same answer, 3 different ways. As you are working today, make sure that you are being really careful about your subtraction. Don't be shy about drawing a picture. Don't be shy about adding up. It's a great strategy. Or for those of you who like to subtract in increments, you're welcome to try that as well. I had a lot of hundreds yesterday. Excited to see the success we have today. Please be careful as you are entering your fractions. We've already talked a little bit about how to have a mixed number, and today you choice as well. All right, best of luck. Happy solving. See you guys tomorrow.